Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. I think for this crowd, I can start with a greeting in tomorrow, which I'll do. Hafa de, hafa tatamano how, saina maase, si tuos maase for coming. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rob Arnold. I'm the executive director of Poets House, this wonderful institution on the Hudson River, and we are a poetry library and a cultural center that is kind of a miracle. It's a miracle that we're here. We have 80,000 books of poetry. We we are an organization because we're a literary organization and because we're a library. We are unfortunately being hit on all sides of the attack on cultural institutions that's coming from this administration. We are usually funded by IMLS, which doesn't exist in any functional way. We are usually funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities, which doesn't exist in any functional way. And we are usually funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, which has similarly been compromised. And so one of the things that I wanted to just mention to all of you, I know that we have a lot of people from out of town who are here, but is it an urgent time for a lot of literary organizations right now? And you don't have to open your pockets for Poets House, but all of you here are here because you love literature in some kind of way, or you love people who love literature. Try to give whatever you can to whoever you can. It's really important. These are really critical institutions. These are the carriers of our cultural values. These are the carriers of our hopes and connections with one another. And I think of literature as this like miraculous technology. It's like it's a analog telepathy. You know, you get to read what somebody else's mind imagined. I think it's really incredible, and it's precious, and it's not a, you know, despite what Big Five Publishing will tell you, it's not a profitable industry, and so many publishers who are partners with Poets House who donate their books to us, so many of them are in real strain right now. We do have a fundraiser coming up, so if you are interested, we have information at our website, also at our front desk. It is a walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. Who's been on the bridge walk before here? Yes, it is an amazing experience if you haven't been. So we start at City Hall Plaza, right at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge. We read poetry aloud to each other. Then we walk across the Brooklyn Bridge reading poetry the whole way. We do another reading in Brooklyn Bridge Park at Jane's Carousel, and then we all have a fabulous dinner at the end of it. It's a lot of fun, and it is a way for you to support Poets House if you're interested and if you're close by. Do consider buying a ticket. And also, we're kind of close to selling out our tickets, which is kind of an amazing thing. But we do have still room for all of you in this room. So if you're interested, you can talk to me, you can talk to any of my colleagues here, and you can talk to whoever's at the front desk. With that, I'm so excited by this event tonight. I have been a fan of both of these poets for such a long time. I'm not going to be the one who's hosting them, though. I will talk just momentarily that when these two books came out, I read them each in like two subway rides. And Kenzie's book is long too, by the way. It is not a short book. Yeah. They were, I mean, I do live in Brooklyn, so take that as you will, but they're urgent books, they're books that are necessary. They're really wonderful books. I hope you will have a chance to read them as well, and I'm excited to hear each of you read from these books tonight with us. With that, I'm going to bring up my colleague, Kate Miller, who's going to be our host for the evening. So, Kate.
Hello, welcome again to Poets House. Thank you so much for being here with us as we celebrate these two wonderful collections. I'm delighted to welcome you to this event. And Rob already introduced Poets House to you, so I don't need to repeat that spiel that I have typed out on my script. But yeah, this event is part of our new work series where we bring in contemporary poets reading from their new collections, and it's kind of just part of our mission of charting the living archive of poetry. And we're just really excited to have Elise Paschen and Kenzie Allen reading from their new works. It's Kenzie's debut collection, and it's Elise's sixth collection. So on the two ends of the spectrum in terms of their career as poets, and both equally dazzling as poets. So I'm really excited to introduce them to you guys. So we have Kenzie Allen's Cloud Missives. It's a poetry collection of excavation and renewal. With care and deep attention, Kenzie Allen asks what we can reimagine of Indigenous personhood in the wake of colonialism and what healing might look like when loving the world. And Elise Paschen's sixth collection, Blood Wolf Moon, explores her family history and Osage heritage, grappling with the reign of terror when outsiders murdered individual members of the Osage for their oil headrights. It's an intimate and unrelenting quest for the translation of identity, attending to what lives on in the body, landscape, and language. So most of our time tonight we'll be hearing from their reading from their collections, but we also will have some time at the end for Q&A from the audience. I also have some questions, but I'll prioritize your questions as well. So if you have any as they're reading, hold them in your brains. So first I'll introduce Kenzie Allen, who will be reading first. Kenzie Allen is a Haudenosaunee poet and multimodal artist, a finalist for the National Poetry Series. Her work has appeared in Poetry Magazine, Boston Review, Narrative, the Paris Review's The Daily, Best New Poets, Poets.org, and other venues. Born in West Texas, she now shares time between Toronto, Ontario, Stavanger, Norway, and the Oneida reservation in Green Bay, Michigan. Wisconsin, not Michigan, sorry. But please give a warm welcome to Kenzie Allen.
Thank you. We like Michigan. Michigan's on our good list. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much to everyone working on everything you're working on here at Poets House. I've always been such a huge admirer, and I just cannot believe that I'm here in this building for my first time reading from my first book, which is still super wild to me. So I'll start by sharing some Oneida language. Segulis wagwek, Kenzie ni yugyats, onyodaga ni yugyats. Or no, sorry, you got lanoda ni yugyats, onyogaga ni I. Waknyota ni wagidaloda. Skanagoga. Skanagoga. Huh? Skanago. So hi to all of you, my friends. My name is Kenzie. I started to say my Oneida name is Oneida, and then I messed up, and I then said my Oneida name means she plays music as she goes along. My tribe is the Oneida. We're the people of the Standing Stone, and I am Turtle Clan. I asked, are you with peace? Which is a way we get right with each other before we get started on anything. It refers to the great law of peace. And I also asked, how is it going along? Is it going along good? Is it not so good? Is it as good as possible? Any answer is okay. Well, okay, so I'll start by reading from, and I'm just so thrilled to be here with Elise Paschen too, by the way. I'll start by reading from Cloud Missives, and I'll just kind of explain a little bit about the book briefly. There's 4 sections. The first section deals with the body and the memories that the body can hold and things that the bones don't tell us about what the body has survived. The second section deals with, is called Manifest. It sort of deals with manifest destiny, pop culture figures, and stereotypes and colonialism as a violence. Third section talks about what would happen if you took on the moniker of the evil queen and every mean thing you've ever been called, and you said, yes, that is my power. And the fourth section is love songs. So we won't hear from every section, but just in case you want to pick up one of these, that's what it's about. And I wanted to start in this case with a poem that is directly from I'll tell you the title of this poem used to be West 46th between 9 and 10. That's where I lived when I was here in New York in 2010. So I will read a poem I never usually read in honor of Poets House, and that is Piano Factory. And that took place again, West 46th between 9th and 10th. 1. Another Body Worlds exhibit with bullseye nipples. Another misfit superhero movie with artistic unibrow. Some cologne bottle on a beach. A lipsticked diva scowling in a Hitler stash. I want you to picture all of these things on the inside of a subway. Someone's tag overlapping someone else's tag. Advertisements were just a way of making seasons when I first arrived. Series premieres and the overnight flop and another sullen model pasted up. 2. I'm at the bar where you last walked out on me, texting you that I'm at the bar where you last walked out on me, where we fought and made up, where I watched you drink too much, hoping it wasn't another night for chasing each other down, past the piano factory, into the wet street, up and down 10th, calling your name. 3. I ran then. I guttered, juiced lozenges to ribbons. I clacked the teeth hard like a language, could beg more as tender-bellied, soft-skulled, never knew better. Ducked still, I hid my claws in fingers, my sharps in faulty cupboards. I hunched, I lurched, I lingered. Sometimes we ran the same direction. I can still see everything, wrists knitted in fever, tangled half dark, our favorite alley as breath in my bad ear, the you of before leaving and sometimes touching more firmly than intended, hours irretrievable, lit up city edges and lights a tempest, pitch failing, lost. The machine says tilt, and I do. I can't sleep, can't sing, but the body adapts. It's actually a much longer poem, but I feel like we all get really tired of sectioned poems like really quickly. So I'll jump to the manifest section. That was from Pathology, and this is Repatriation. This is a poem about the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, which asks that Native funerary remains and materials be returned to their descendant tribes. And just as a reminder, those are relatives. They're not just ancient ancestors. These are actual relatives, family members. And so when a museum takes these things into custody or returns them, there needs to be, for instance, a plan of how family members will visit those family members again. So just to kind of set the scene, that was only passed in 1990 to start protecting Native American graves. Repatriation. Sun-bleached bone and sticks wrapped with the skins in which we loved them, or nestled and charred by the broken hearth, clutching the wing of a swan to ward spirits, or wormwood, beechwood, cherry oak, pine, slatted and nailed neatly under 6 feet, or in hard times even stacked above one another so that the bodies collapse like floors of ruined buildings, sighing into the coffins below. Or piled, 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 nameless, done in, piled, 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 buried over quickly in the night, or in personal collections, in trophy cases, or in pieces, piled, cataloged and inked with the smallest numbers along the cranial spline, packed amid boxes in the basement of the Longhouse Museum until proper funding can be acquired for a proper display. Red taped and returned, gathering dust, far from the longhouses you knew. jump ahead here and let's do a love song. So what you need to know about this, who's been to a powwow or a rodeo? Powwow or rodeo, or both. Yeah. So the guy who announces them is the same guy, like between the two, like the rodeo guy and the powwow guy, same guy. And he sounds like this. Oh, Tiny Tots up next on deck. Good job. Good job. So that's the guy. So this is the love song to the man announcing powwows and rodeos. How your voice over salted flanks licks tender. And when you say, young ones are future, it is left like making room. And when you name the horses, booms low, storms a kick-up moan, chases them down as spotted silverfish in a round pen quarrel, then shoot back out the entrance, spotlit and away in a shuddering. Name me a jingle dress in neon and gold leaf. Bespeak moccasins for my turning feet, with my mother's best beating. Paint her having sown those seeds onto leather backing all of my life. Welcome the crowd to my birth and the language to my ears. Early. My name, early. Wampum and the good spirits everywhere and early. Don't send me home without a round of applause, if not a title, if not a good ride and a fast time. So that is some of Cloud Missives. And then since this is a new works exhibit, I wanted to share one new poem. And because it's brand new, I'm going to do the terrible 2025 thing of reading on my phone. So I apologize in advance, but I promise this is very authentic for my generation. I don't know, is it? Anyway, so if I turn it like this, it's going to be a very different poem. So this is a call and response poem. So since we have a wonderful audience here tonight, this is with thanks to Craig Santos Perez, who has written a really wonderful call and response poem about spam. So I highly recommend try and find that. And so this is a poem about wampum. And wampum is purple and white beads made from clam shells or quahog shells. It's very labor intensive, very delicate process. So the beads are very valuable, but they're not currency. They are instead something to encode stories, names, and treaties. So when you weave a wampum belt, you are engaging in an act of treaty making. When you read a wampum belt, you are engaging in learning what your responsibilities are to the land that you're on as a treaty person, because we are all treaty people. So this is a poem called Woven. What you need to know is that the white beads stand for joy and celebration. The purple beads stand for solemnity and sorrow. And each symbol on the belt tells a different part of the story. So for this call and response poem, I ask that when I say the word white, you say the word purple. When I say the word purple, you say the word white. Okay, let's practice. Purple, purple, white. You get the rhythm? Okay. I'm going to do this to kind of help us with the rhythms as we go. So purple, white, white, purple. Yeah? All right. Here we go. This poem is called Woven. Purple, purple, because celebration and solemnity are in balance. Purple, white, white, because we are weaving our wampum belt. Purple, white, side by side as we go down the river. Purple, purple, each in our own canoe. White, white, because we are still here. White, because they tried to kill us. Purple, purple, because they tried to erase us. Purple, 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 because they tried to silence us. purple, 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 because they are still trying white, 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 purple, because we honor the shells purple and in all their faces, white and their phases like the moon, purple, how she pulls the tide, white, how she cradles their bodies, purple, and our bodies, purple, because we are weaving together, white, ourselves together, white, together, ourselves, purple, white, purple, white, for solemnity and joy, purple, and for solemnity and joy, purple, and for sorrow, purple, and for celebration, white, and for all of us, purple, and white, and purple, and white, and we are telling the story. Thank you, Yowanko.
Wow, thank you so much, Kenzie. That was really fun to weave a poem with you there. It was really, really powerful. So now we will hear from Elise Paschen, and I'll just give you her bio. Elise Paschen is an enrolled member of the Osage Nation and the author of 6 poetry collections. Most recently, Blood Wolf Moon, as well as Tall Chief, The Nightlife, Bestiary, Infidelities, and Houses Coasts. As an undergraduate at Harvard, she received the Garrison Medal for Poetry. She holds an MPhil and DPhil degrees, both from Oxford University. Paschen received the Rupert Costo Chair in American and Indian Affairs Medal in 2019. Her poems have been published in Poetry Magazine, The New Yorker, among other magazines, as well as in numerous anthologies. She's the editor of the eloquent poem 128 Contemporary Poems in Their Making, as well as the New York Times best-selling anthology Poetry Speaks to Children. She's the former executive director of the Poetry Society of America, and she is who we have to thank for the Poetry in Motion posters that we have in subways and on buses. And she currently teaches at the MFA writing program at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So please join me in welcoming Elise.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was wonderful, Kenzie. I have to do a shout out. I am a founding board member of Indigenous Nations Poets. Rob Arnold also serves on the board with me. And Kenzie is one of our inaugural poetry fellows. So I'm just such a huge fan of Kenzie. So I'm so happy to read here with you tonight. Hawe, Elise Paschen, Jage Abrier. Hello, my name is Elise Paschen. I'm going to be reading to you from my new book, Blood Wolf Moon. And it opens with a long poem. Is this in the right spot, by the way? It opens with a long poem called Heritage, which consists of a bracelet of poems where the last line of the first poem becomes the first line of the next. And I just want to say that in the audience are several friends of mine from way back when. And we have 2 prima ballerinas here, Helene Alexopoulos and Maria Teresa Balog. And so happy you're both here. And I'm going to start with a poem about being a backstage baby, since you both have probably had similar experiences. So I'm going to jump ahead with Heritage 12, and then I'll go back to more of the earlier poems of Heritage 12. 12. Masquerading as ocean, the duplicitous waves. Beware the undertow. Across a lake, my mother floated, a swan, spellbound by day, transformed back to human at night. As a child, with every shift of vibrato, I could predict the enchantment. Let me tell you about a procession of swans, the swish of waves luring beyond the stage. After encores, my mother's face shone when she saw my eagerness curtained behind the wings. Her only child, a fairy tale made flesh, her moonlit face encompassed by ivory swan feathers. And now I'm going to go back to the beginning of heritage with the creation myth of the Osage. And I'll just sort of hop around a little bit with these poems. Heritage 2. Extinguished, our next of kin descended from constellations, the little ones desiring a form, out of air into muscle, sinew, limbs, landing in red oak trees, and with the heft of their new bodies, scattered capped oak nuts across the earth. Underneath branches, each acorn, a child to be born. How eagle navigated the downward flight, wings spackled, catching spirals of wind. Waters blown across land masses, sculpted by great elk, the earth maker, as hooves sunk, torso and antlers heaved into ocean. The water people, the name givers, gave appellations to the sky people, the land people. I have always been earthbound and obstinate, drawn to these rising and falling hills, the tall grass prairies, the deer rutting moon hovering over the ridge. How I mapped the rental car onto back roads, the trails my relatives crisscrossed on their seasonal hunts until I was lost. My Osage name, Sehangaweko, descends from the Buffalo clan. I seek out bodies of water, the way those who came before settled along the deep tributaries, the veins on the backs of our hands, the hands I recognize in those oval family portraits, long, lean, poised. I was born in the month of the blood wolf moon. 3. I was born in the month of the blood wolf moon. My mother said icicles shook the trees as she and my father traipsed along the black sheet sidewalk to their convertible. Her timed contractions stretched out hours long until almost midnight. Hospital bedside, my aunt and uncle smiled over the crib. Or was that just a photograph? Tell me about departure. Tell me how often she left the newborn, jetted away on Pan Am, tied up the ribbons of her satin toe shoes. I am not one to antagonize her. I bow low to her voice, she who crossed the Iron Curtain, searching for the baby photos inside stamped envelopes. Memories sleight of hand. I don't remember how she vanished or when, tiptoeing into the cape of night, wrapped in ermine, in mink, flabbergasting audiences with every pirouette. Frozen, perfect, the star blazing on stage. And I'm going to skip ahead to 2 more. Number 9, Heritage 9. For the sake of a dime, oblivious owners invented names for teams, Braves, Chiefs, Redskins. Football zealots, my parents rooted for the Bears. Last night, someone holding a glass of Sancerre at a posh French restaurant said, "Why should they care about the name Redskins? Why make such a fuss?" My blonde hair fooled her. Our host whispered, her family is Osage. After we pushed back chairs during goodbyes, she apologized. When my mother, Maria Tallchief, danced the muse Terpsichore in Apollo on the stage of the Paris Opera House, the audience embraced her, shouting, "Encore, encore." The headlines of 47 read, "Peau rouge danse à l'opéra." Peau rouge, red skin, a phrase she learned to ignore. Reading my friend's manuscript, I'm stunned to discover the origin of redskins, the bodies of natives bought in for bounty. During my youth, every Sunday in the fall, my parents bicycled along Lake Michigan to cheer their home team playing in Soldier Field, a stadium named as a memorial to those who died in combat, constructed the year my mother was born. Hen. The year my mother was born in Fairfax, Oklahoma, white men were marrying Osage women and killing them for their headrights. My mother was born a year after the Indian Citizenship Act was passed. Indians tied to the US for or against their wills. 3 years before her birth, her half-sister, baby Ruth's grave was dynamited with nitroglycerin by outlaws scavenging for diamonds and gold buried inside the casket. In the Tallchief plot, I wander through family history, the marble monuments, angelic statues, measuring each step on grass, memorizing photographs. This one of a striking beauty, my great-grandmother, Eliza Big Heart Tallchief, surviving her husband by 50 years. The widow, the adored grandmother of my mother, Eliza. Only now do I see my name, a permutation of hers. At home in Chicago, every day I pass family photographs framed on walls. My great-grandfather's oval sepia portrait of his boyish face replicated on the headstone. Instead of the young bride, here is Eliza, a tribal elder wrapped in a multicolored blanket, standing outside her front porch, a photo taken after all those years she outlived him. So my book, so Kenzie was saying how her book was modeled after, in 4 parts. And mine is modeled after in 5 parts after the 5 acts of a play. And I'm going to conclude with several poems from part 5. So I see this next poem as a language origin story, where I imagine my mother as a child hearing the Osage language. Her father, Alex Tallchief, conditioned by Indian boarding school, spoke only English, even though his mother, Eliza, conversed in Osage. The Osage language in this poem is written in Osage orthography, which I translated from our new online Osage dictionary. Wajaje, Osage. The first language, Wajaje, which Eliza, her grandmother, spoke. I try to learn the words Ie from a book, a dictionary. What was my mother taught as a young girl sitting on the front stoop of her grandma's house, inhabited by half-brothers she revered? Her favorite hunky hand outstretched showed her how to catch the wild horse, unbridled in the pasture. She knotted a paisley bandana around her neck. This language for throat, dotse, and tongue, these, words she learns to speak but then forgets. She loosens, waving, the rope from the horse's crest. So I'll conclude with two poems from the very end of the book. And they are written in 3 columns. The first is in Osage orthography. The second, the phonetic spelling of the Osage from Carolyn Quintero's Osage Dictionary, and the last in English. And I will now just read those 2 in English. Stationary. Sign with a thumbprint, deep in this earth. The throat, like a waterfall, rumbles. A sycamore's shadow swallows the swan. We thunder while our teeth talk. Take off a garment. At sundown, leaf-like layers stipple a flooding water. Typewriter. I zigzag into the world, a woman, a wolf, within my heart, an untamed horse. What do you call it? The wind. Which pathway to that star or the orbit of a star? Vapor rises off standing water. Upstairs, tell untruths, that of a tongue. Time is just the ticking noise against metal. Thank you so much.
Well, as you were both reading, I was thinking of rhythm and the rhythm of language, of specific languages, and the rhythms that those impart in your experience and life, and how they relate to the landscapes you see. And I wondered what a challenge it is to, one, have 2 languages, and how to make the rhythms of ancestral rhythms come true through English, which you have to use at the end of the day.
This is a great question. Thank you so much. And I am realizing just when you're like, this is what I think is a great question, is when you realize a lot of things like right when the person's asking it. And I'm realizing like, I have to preface this by saying I'm not a speaker of Oneida. Like I wouldn't count myself an Oneida speaker, but I'm a learner of Oneida and I will probably be a lifelong learner of it. But the more that I'm practicing it, the more that I use it, and I think it's important to put those words into the air when we can, the more that I do, those rhythms are getting internalized into my body. I think it was Dorian Lux said that the best way to learn poetry and to learn how to write a poem is to memorize poetry, because you internalize the music in your body and in the breath. And I think that's something that's happening with all of our languages that we're exposed to every day. So I noticed that the more I'm exposed to Oneida and the more I'm exposed also to Norwegian, which is my husband's ancestral language, my rhythms and cadences kind of change a little bit. I'm not sure that they change in the text or if it's the way I'm reading them. But I noticed today, I would have normally said to you, "Agajanuni jiweskugedo," because I'm so happy you've all made it here tonight. Didn't want to take up too much time, but even saying that, I can feel the rhythm in my body and I can feel the way that when I was reading tonight, I'm enjoying the syllables more. I feel like when you're learning another language, you're enjoying that language and you're enjoying the way that it feels in the mouth and the body. And I feel like learning Oneida, learning Norwegian, I turn back to English and I lean into it more. I love it more. And that's, you know, if that's the language that I've been given growing up, like, at least let me take it to the next level based on what I learn from my own heritage and my own ancestral languages.
That's beautiful. So I've looked to the Osage Dictionary for many, many years as inspiration for my work. I wrote a poem called Wigia that includes the line during Zaga Ziga Seta, the killer of the flower's moon. And that line was used as the title for David Graham's book, Killers of the Flower Moon, and then Scorsese's movie. So the Osage Dictionary, we have the Francis LaFlèche Dictionary, then we have the Carolyn Quintero Dictionary. As some of you know, my mother, Maria Tallchief, was commemorated on a quarter, and we worked with the Osage Nation on that quarter, and the Osage Nation said we should include the orthography. And it's such a new language for the Osage. So we're one of the few nations to have created our own language. I am very much a learner. So I've been taking Osage language classes for about a year and a half, and I'm still someone who at this stage of the game is learning, is incorporating the language as a written language and trying to revive that language on the page. And so I'm very hesitant. You know, the one poem I read to you, I can read those Osage words with confidence, but I have a long way to go with my learning. So for me, in terms of the rhythms, I'm not quite there yet. But when I take my Osage language classes, it's fascinating because I do feel as if I'm learning my ancestors' language and a vision of the world that you don't normally see, you know, with other parts of your culture, of one's cultural heritage. So it's fascinating to me. We are all involved, Rob, Kenzie, myself, in Language Back. The founder of INAPO, Kimberly Blazer, has launched a Language Back program to encourage all of us to return to our languages.
Hashtag language back.
Hashtag language back. Thank you for that question, Emily.
This makes me think of the fact that also Elise has this incredibly beautiful skirt, ribbon skirt with Osage orthography on it. And so you're walking around wearing the language as you're moving through the world, like you're physically carrying it with you on your body. And I think that's really, like, I think it's so beautiful, the fact that it's a newer language in terms of the written language, the fact that there's such pride in it. And then you get to go out there with the language on your body as this kind of ambassador really just gets me every time.
So much. And yeah, that was my point about the orthography, is that I'm so happy that now the quarter is in the hands of millions of people. So people are seeing Osage orthography. And my mom was also a signature Barbie last fall. So we were also able to incorporate Osage orthography on that Barbie box. So people are seeing our language, you know, in a way that you would never expect. And certainly it far extends our influence as poets to get our language out into the world.
How quickly did that Barbie sell out?
Like within a week.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the audience? Yeah.
Hesje Estrongo Tarikasper Jehojakuros. I thought I'd bring some of my language into the conversation. I'm a citizen of the Muskogee Nation. I know I introduced myself in person to you both at the beginning, but it's so great to hear you both speaking and writing in your own languages. I'm wondering, you know, like as a language learner myself, how learning your languages have kind of changed or evolved your writing process. I think for me, like I've heard bits and pieces of my language and have always like carried it with me. But to be fluent is something that's like totally different. And also a little, I don't know, like it's a big honor, but it's also very intimidating. So yeah, thank you.
Must have been for you.
Well, I just feel that I'm sort of at the beginning of it. So, you know, those dictionary poems at the end are poems that just kind of arose from the page. So incorporating terms and phrases that I wouldn't normally incorporate. So I haven't yet mastered Osage. It's going to be years and years and years from now that I could tell you that will influence my process. Those poems came out in almost a haiku-like way, because it's just these images and these nouns and verbs that floated up from the page. But I'll let Kenzie answer.
I think like I mentioned earlier, like it's making me just love language in general more. It's making me dive in a little bit more, makes me think a lot more about etymology. And as poets, that's like our bread and butter. Like if you don't know what to do in a poem, look up the meaning of the word or the history of the word and just like follow that, right? Or throw a bird in it. Like those are your two options. Or throw more birds in it, you know, like one bird's never enough these days. But verbs do it too. But you think about that, right? You think about verbs more, you think about gerunds and things like that. You think about the elements of language more. You actually learn terms for language when you're learning another language. Usually you learn like terms that you don't necessarily like. Gerund, I didn't know that before I started learning Norwegian, right? And now I can do more with English because of it. But also I think like there's a way in which people are afraid to experiment with the language. And I think that makes total sense. And I completely understand and support that. There's also language teachers that I've had who have said that the language welcomes experimentation because the language was always evolving with us, and the language was alive and is alive. And so the more you use it, the more possibilities are out there. The Maliseet for linguistic anthropologist Bernard C. Pearley talks about that as emergent vitalities. The more you use the language and the more you do new things with the language, the more vitalities emerge from the language and the more life the language has. So how are our languages staying alive without us being playful with them? So I think that that's an aspect that gets left out sometimes in the conversation around language revitalization, and specifically around like language learners using the language. And in poetry welcomes experimentation too. And so to me, that's a perfect marriage, actually.
Beautiful.
It literally just occurred to me. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? We have time for one more. Otherwise, I will ask one of my questions. Okay, sweet. I get to ask one of mine. I actually was really curious. Both of you kind of deal with the body and how memory is stored in the body, whether it's lived memory or generational trauma or like inherited kind of memory. And I was just wondering what your experience whilst you were writing your poems, what your relationship to your own body was, whether you were distanced or disembodied or deeper into your body, and yeah, that what your relationship was for that.
I can start.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kate. So I think Kate's referring to, my middle section is part 3, really plunges deeply into the Reign of Terror. And it links, there's an Ars Poetica about Killers of the Flower Moon called After Killers of the Flower Moon. But the beginning poem is a prose poem called The Terrors, which links the speaker's night terrors with the generational trauma of the murders of the Reign of Terror. And for me, it was very visceral, and it was something that had been happening to me back in the 90s, having these night terrors, living at 123 West 69th Street. And there's a section 4 all about living in the house as a little girl and having these night terrors. So it's something that's haunted me for many years. And it all, it all culminated when I was staying at the Tyrone Guthrie Center at a writer's center, and at the writer's residency in Northern Ireland, and had this very vivid night terror. So what happened there was that one of the artists said, I think it's tied into your background. So that's something that I'm exploring throughout this book. And I feel that for me, it's very deeply linked. So whether or not it was something personal or something that is you're haunted by, these are questions that I'm asking in this book. So thank you.
It's kind of making me wonder what, like, I feel like there's a delayed reaction with me in this book, like, because this book took like about 10 years to write. So during that time, if I was holding tension in my body, it has become a permanent part of my body by this point. But then I look back at it, and even being here has had a physical effect on my body. Like, I lived through a lot of difficult times here in New York City. I lived through a lot of really beautiful times too, but all of that lives in the body. And even when I'm in this city, like my whole body just kind of, I hold my tension in a different place. I'm also a singer, and when I sing, I would hold my tension in my hands so much that I wouldn't be able to uncurl them afterward. I would just have these little fists that I couldn't uncurl. I wonder what it is my body's doing right now that's similar to when I sing. I wonder what that is. Like, I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but I will tell you that the body is your instrument. like things live in the body, the breath lives in the body. When we're singing, the body is our instrument, and as poets, we are also using the body and the sort of like public consciousness as our instrument. And so I think like the way our consciousness interacts with the public consciousness and the way that those things interact with our bodies is just something I'm really fascinated by. But I think when I'm writing, I think I curl up a little bit sometimes, or I stretch out a little bit, or I have to get up and shake things off. There are certain poems that I can't read without crying. So I think it is a very bodily experience. Yeah. And like, you know, get you that poem that you can't read without crying.
Thank you. That's a really great answer. Okay, well, I will come back to the front to say our final remarks, actually, rather than being a invisible voice from the back. Yeah, I guess just thank you so much, Elise and Kenzie, again. This is such a wonderful evening. We're now going to have a reception upstairs where you can chat with our poets, have some wine, and get your books signed. The books will be on sale in the lobby. And yeah, thank you again so much for coming. And yeah, thank you, Elise and Kenzie, for sharing your work.